Let's take a trip back in time over 4 billion years ago when the Earth was just starting out. Let's imagine we press pause on this 24-second video that is our solar system is formation, and remove the moon from the night sky. What would happen if the Earth had no moon at all? How do we get such a cool moon anyway? And how did it come to be? First off, how does the Earth even have a moon? There are two popular theories about how we got our moon. The first is called the giant impact hypothesis. This hypothesis suggests that early in the Earth's history, when it was still hot and molten, a Mars-sized object called Theia crashed into it. This impact knocked a bunch of debris into orbit around the Earth, and over time that debris coalesced into our moon. Another theory is called the fission hypothesis. This hypothesis suggests that the moon formed out of material that was spun off from the Earth as it was forming. So basically the Earth was kind of like a spinning blob with a bunch of extra space junk around it. And eventually that junk coalesced into the moon. We don't know for sure which one of these hypotheses is correct or if another one not yet discovered is the right answer. But luckily for us, we do not need to know exactly how the moon formed in order to figure out what would happen if it didn't exist. One of the most obvious effects of no moon would be an altered climate. Now, we already know that the moon affects the Earth's climate because its gravity interacts with the Earth's water and atmosphere to cause tides. So, without the moon, we'd experience much lower high tides and much higher low tides. It could also cause some extreme weather events that we don't typically see now, like storm surges and tsunamis. The moon also plays a role in stabilizing Earth's tilt. You see, Earth is tilted on its axis at about 23 degrees. That means that one pole is always pointed towards the sun, while the other pole is always pointed away. This tilt is important because it causes seasons. Without the moon, Earth's tilt would be less stable and wobble more. This could lead to extreme seasonal changes, maybe even causing the poles to occasionally point directly at the sun, which would cause a total climate catastrophe. Not good. The moon also affects the length of a day. Because of the gravitational interaction between the Earth and the moon, our days are actually 6 minutes longer than they would be if the moon didn't exist. So, without the moon, days would be 6 minutes shorter. But it wouldn't be because we're living an hour less each day. It would be because the Earth's rotation would speed up to compensate for the lack of gravitational pull from the moon. Without the moon, people probably wouldn't have been able to navigate very well. For thousands of years, humans used the moon to help them navigate by tracking where the moon was in the sky relative to the stars. They'd use the moon's position to tell the time, to tell if they were headed in the right direction, and to figure out where they were in relation to other points of interest. Of course, humans still would have been able to navigate, but it would have been a lot harder. The moon also would have affected human culture. Just think about all the songs, stories, art, and myths that feature the moon. The absence of the moon would have resulted in a totally different cultural landscape. In fact, there's evidence that the moon landings in the 1960s actually changed world culture. Before the moon landings, people saw the moon as this distant, almost mystical thing. After the moon landings, the moon became something more familiar, more commonplace. It went from being this faraway mystery to something that humans could actually reach. Some people might argue that this change in perspective helped usher in the modern age of space exploration. And then there's the romantic aspect. Most people probably don't realize that the moon is actually about 7 miles, 11 kilometers or 400 billion cubits larger than the Earth's diameter. But when you view the moon from Earth, it appears to be the exact same size as the sun. What makes this possible is the fact that the moon is roughly 400 times closer to the Earth than the sun. Coincidence? Well, it turns out that the moon is thought to have formed at the same time as the Earth. So it makes sense that they're roughly the same size. But what does that mean for lovers who want to gaze upon the stars? Turns out the moon has been inspiring romance for centuries. Take a look at this 19th century French painting called A Moonlit Night by Adolphe Yvon. The couple making out under the moonlight looks pretty romantic, doesn't it? But the painting isn't titled In a World Without Moonlight. Instead, it's titled A Moonlit Night. Why? Well, the artist likely felt that moonlight adds to the scene, but it's not necessary for the romance to happen. In other words, it's better to have moonlight than none at all. Okay, so we've talked about how the moon affects our daily lives, culture, and even relationships. But what would happen to the moon if it disappeared? First off, the Earth would start to wobble a bit. Without the moon's gravitational pull, the Earth would wobble more and be less stable on its axis. As we mentioned earlier, this would lead to more extreme seasonal changes and possibly even a complete climate catastrophe. The Earth's atmosphere would also change. The moon plays a role in the Earth's magnetic field by deflecting some of the solar wind. Without the moon, the solar wind would be able to penetrate deeper into the Earth's atmosphere, causing auroras to occur further away from the poles. This could also disrupt important things like GPS and communications. The Earth's oceans would also be affected. The moon's gravity is responsible for tides, so without the moon, we would see much lower high tides and much higher low tides. This could make things difficult for animals and plants that live in coastal areas. For example, crabs and other shore dwellers would have to find new ways to survive, and coastal plants would be exposed to more air, which could kill them. The moon also helps keep Earth's orbit stable. As we mentioned earlier, Earth and the moon formed around the same time, and their gravitational interaction has kept Earth's orbit stable ever since. Without the moon, Earth's orbit would become more elliptical, meaning that sometimes it would be closer to the sun and sometimes it would be farther away. This could lead to more extreme climate changes. The moon also helps stabilize the tilt of Earth's orbit. This tilt is important for life because it causes seasons. Without the moon, Earth's orbit would become more upright, which would lead to less extreme seasons. However, it's not clear whether this would be good or bad for life. Now, let's imagine for a moment that the moon never existed and humans evolved on a world without moonlight. How would we be different? Our ancestors likely would have relied on other celestial bodies like the stars and planets to help them navigate. They also may have developed different myths and legends based on the natural world around them. In general, we can say that humans are highly adaptable creatures. So even if the moon never existed, we still would have found a way to survive. So there you have it. The moon is more than just a pretty face in the sky. It's a vital part of the Earth's ecosystem that affects everything from our climate to our culture. Maybe next time you look up at the moon, you'll appreciate it a little bit more. Or maybe you'll just think, hey, that's pretty. Or maybe you'll just think, hey, that's that thing that Big Sean referenced in that one song. I wonder if he's a fan of the moon. Honestly, I'm surprised nobody asked me that during my interview with him. I'm just going to put that out there. Big Sean, if you're listening, I want to talk about the moon. You know what else is super interesting? Space photography. Did you know that for the longest time, we didn't know what the dark side of the moon looked like? That's because the moon was always facing the same side towards the Earth. It wasn't until the Soviet Union launched the Luna 3 spacecraft in 1959 that we were able to see the other side of the moon. This image was the first close-up look at the far side of the moon, and it revealed a world that was dramatically different from the side we see from Earth. The far side of the moon is covered in craters, many of which are named after famous people like John F. Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe. It's also home to some of the oldest rocks in the solar system. These rocks are some of the oldest pieces of evidence we have of the moon's formation. I really hope you enjoyed learning about the moon. If you did, please consider subscribing. It really helps support us. Also, we have another channel that explores all the wonders of space. Thanks for watching.